Good evening, everyone. I'm Pastor Tim Westermeyer, one of the pastors at St. Philip the Deacon Lutheran Church in Plymouth, Minnesota. And on behalf of the church, which presents the Faith and Life Lecture Series, it's my privilege and pleasure to welcome you to the start of the 18th season of these talks. A special welcome, as always, to anyone who has not been with us in the past. And of course, a special welcome to everyone who's joining us virtually today. As we did at the end of the last season, this talk is being conducted virtually exclusively because of COVID, and we are very glad you've joined us. Just a word about the flow for tonight. We will hear from our speaker, of course, who will be talking about faith and leadership. After his talk, there will be an opportunity for a Q&A period. If we were in person and live, those questions would be asked directly by you. Obviously, we can't do that tonight. So if you have a question for our speaker, you can get it to us in a few ways. If you're on our website, on the Faith and Life website, there's a form to submit a question. You can also submit a question to social@spdlc.org. And if you're on Facebook, you can submit a question there as well, I believe, in the comment section. This is being broadcast on Facebook, on YouTube, as well as the websites of Faith and Life and St. Philip the Deacon. So again, welcome to all of you. This series, again, I mentioned it's now been going on for 17 years. This is the start of the 18th season. Has been an opportunity to invite respected and well-known individuals in all kinds of fields of work who happen to be Christian, who are willing to talk about the way their faith informs the work they do. So we've had authors and artists and bloggers and journalists and executives and scientists. We've had some athletes in the past, and we are delighted tonight to welcome another very famous and well-known athlete. He was born in Houston, Texas, the 10th child of a family of 10 children. He became a standout football player as a ninth grader at Worthing High School in Texas. He got a scholarship to go to Baylor in Waco, where he was an All-American for 2 years, and he set records for tackles, which we can find out. I think they may still stand. He was drafted by the Bears, and his rookie season was 1981. He was Defensive Player of the Year in 85 and 88. In 85, of course, he was part of the famous Monsters of the Midway who won the 1986 Super Bowl, Super Bowl 20. He was inducted to the College Football Hall of Fame in 1995 and the NFL Football Hall of Fame in 1998. And in 1999, he was ranked the 56th player in Sporting News list of the 100 greatest football players of all time. We are delighted to welcome him tonight. Will you join me in welcoming Mike Singletary?
Well, hello. Very excited to have the opportunity to speak with you today. And I guess I've been trying to figure out exactly how I would use this time. And I think I'm going to talk about life. I'm going to talk about leadership, and basically kind of how does my faith really work through leadership. And so I guess just a little bit about me. I'm originally from Houston, Texas, last of 10 kids. And of course, my father was a Pentecostal pastor, and a lot of things transpired in that time. And, you know, we were like a lot of large families at that time, really trying to make it and trying to make ends meet. My dad was also a construction worker, which really helped me understand very early on that I wanted to get my education. I did not like construction work. It was tough work. Playing football was a blessing. Anytime I had a chance to go to practice and not go to work with my dad was a treat indeed. So I guess as I look at my life, there are a number of things happened early on that really made me take a step back and look at my life and kind of where I was going and where I was headed. And when you're the last of 10 kids, you know, a lot of things, happen. And by being the last one, I don't think anyone really expected a whole lot from me. And, you know, the older kids were kind of doing their thing and starting their lives. And the age spread between the oldest and youngest was like 18 years. So there I am at a little kid trying to figure things out. I'm also the smallest in my family and the least talented in my family. So everybody was kind of really kind of past me. You know, Mike, yeah, he's a cute little kid. Yeah, he's all right. Spoiled, if anything. They would all say I was spoiled. And they had the right to say that, being the last one. When I was a kid, I was very sickly. As a matter of fact, the doctors really talked to my parents about considering aborting me because my mom had a few miscarriages and it just didn't seem like it was going to work well. But my parents elected to have me and go through with it, and I think it worked out pretty well. When I look at my life, I think my life really started when I was 12 years old. At 12 years old, everything changed for me. Up until that time, I was just kind of a kid that I didn't say much, didn't do much, just kind of a silly little kid with my thumb in my mouth, following my mom around. And but at 12 years old, some very significant things happened. One is my dad decided to leave my mom and get remarried. So that was very heart-wrenching for my mom, and to see her go through that and deal with that in her life. And then my brother Grady, who was next to me in the family line, moved back home to try and help my mom out financially. You know, mom was working 2 and 3 jobs, really trying to pay off the house and really make some things happen with my sister and myself. It was a very tough time. 6 months after my dad left, my brother was killed in an automobile accident, and I'm thinking to myself, life really isn't fair. And I made a conscious decision to just kind of go through life and don't try to be the best, because if you try to be the best, you know, people kind of point you out and go, you know, who do you think you are? But you don't want to be the worst, because then they don't want you on their team or don't want you around. So I had decided at 12 years old that I would just be mediocre. And I think everybody likes mediocre because it's not a challenge. It's not a threat. It's someone that you want to introduce other friends to. You want to introduce everybody to, because you're no threat. Hey, meet Mike. He's my buddy. You know, he doesn't want to do anything, doesn't want to go anywhere, but he's a good guy. And I think that was pretty much me. But what happened is I was walking around in the kitchen at 12 years old, shortly after my brother Grady's funeral. And I found myself walking around, moping around, and making that decision to be mediocre. And my mom saw me, and she knew me very well. And she said, son, I just need you to sit down. And I want to talk to you about this thing called life. And I sat down, and mom said, son, I want you to know that greatness is in you. There's something very special about you, but you'll never find it if you give up. And she said, I want to give you the key to life. The key to life, son, is not if you fall down, it's when you fall down, getting up, dusting yourself off, getting back in the ring, and just start swinging. And you just got to keep swinging, son. And you just got to keep swinging until maybe one day you're the only one left. That's what life is about. Then she asked me the question that really changed my life. And that was the challenge. She said, son, I know you're 12 years old. I know this is not fair. And I know this is tough. But I want to know if you'll be the man of the house. And I thought, wow, mom, man of the house? I was thinking, you know, I'm the smallest one in the family. I got some sisters that could be the man of the house. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want the responsibility. But when I looked at her, I really knew that she believed in me. And when I knew that she believed in me, I looked at her and I said, Mom, I can do that. And I went in my room and I got out a sheet of paper and I wrote out my vision statement. Didn't know that it was a vision statement at the time, but that's what it was. And I began to write out my goals. I began to write down my vision about what I wanted to do with my life. And it sounded like this: find a way to get a scholarship to go to college, get my degree, in which I'd be the first one in my family to do so, become an All-American, get drafted and go to the NFL, buy my mom a house, and take care of her for the rest of her life, become an All-Pro, own my own business. That was it. I wrote that out. I put it on my wall. And every day I looked at it. Some days I came in from school and I'd rip it off the wall because I didn't feel like I was anywhere near it. First of all, I wasn't even on a team. I had to beg my mom to let me play. And so I was late going out for the team. And it was a tough time. My mom really was at a tough place, and she really didn't want to let me play. She knew that, I was sickly as a kid, and I was a small kid, and she had all types of concern, but she really knew that this was so important to me. And she made me promise that if I didn't get hurt, she would let me play. And with that, I went out for the team and didn't start out great. Didn't look great. I had a tough time getting started. I was getting drug all over the field and run over, and it was tough. But I tell you what, man, I love the game. I love having the opportunity to play football. When I look back at that time, I just realized that vision statement really became my boundaries. That day that I wrote out my vision statement, the very next day I went to school, and there were 4 guys that I was hanging around with that they weren't great guys, but they were cool guys. And, they got in trouble sometimes. And, I was just kind of hanging out with them because it was cool. And because I was with them, I was cool, I thought. Well, that next day, I went to school after writing that vision statement, and I found them and I said, guys, I can't be your friend anymore. I'm going in a different direction. I'm going to go out for the football team. And they laughed. Football team? Man, you can't play. You're too small. You're going to go out there and get hurt. You think you can play? Really? And I thought, I got to try. I'm going to go out for the football team, and I'm going to do the best I can. But I can't hang out with you guys anymore. They threatened to jump on me. They didn't like it, but I had made up my mind. I said, you do what you got to do, but I'm going to go in a different direction. And that really changed my life, because those guys that I hung out with, they were either in jail or dead very shortly after that, just a few years after that. And it's pretty amazing how life-changing that one challenge that my mother gave me about being a man of the house, it really made a difference. I think in life, when we're going through life, it takes courage. It takes courage to make very difficult decisions. It takes courage to do the things that you should do, but there may be some fear. Well, what if it doesn't work? What if it doesn't work out? But you know in your heart is something that you at least need to try. And I think that's one of the most important components to have in life is courage. Because if you have courage, 9 times out of 10, fear is not going to stop you. You may be afraid of going forward. You may be afraid of what people say. You may be afraid of the consequences, but you're not going to be regretful. And to me, it's so important to live life and to live it courageously. And if you make the mistake, man, just know that it was something that I really wanted to do, something that I really wanted to try, and I really, really thought I could do it. Well, that's something that I don't want to be able to look back in my life and say, I wish I had tried that. I wish I had done that. I really felt it in my heart that I could do it, but I talked myself out of it. So one of the most important components in life is courage. I would say one of the next things in life that's really, really important is consistency. As anyone that is going to have some success in life, you got to be consistent. And consistent, I could use the word habits, but I wanted to use, C, the letter C tonight. And so you could kind of follow it. But courage is the first one, and consistency is the next. Why consistency? Because I'm going to stick with it, and I'm going to find out. I'm going to try to make a formula for it and find out what makes it work. What is it that I'm doing that I'm not quite doing right? Let me try it again and do it a little differently. Let me add this or let me subtract that. But consistency is something, if I can develop consistency, a pattern in my life, I got a chance to do some special things. Because I find that it's the people that are consistent. First of all, if I have courage to do it and I'm going to stick with it, and then I have the consistency of developing the pattern or the habits that I need to continue to put one foot in front of the other. I'm going to do this every day. I'm going to eat this every day. I'm going to do this workout every day. I'm going to watch this show on development or whatever it is every day. I'm going to put in the work. I'm going to learn this technique. Those are the kinds of things, and the stick-to-itness every day, being able to know that when I get up in the morning, when I go to bed at night, there is a purpose, there's a plan that I have throughout that day. Developing consistency can develop greatness. So one of the other things, probably the most important thing, is being centered. And what I mean by that is I can have goals, I can aspire to do things, but it comes down to why. What makes me want to do those things? As you look at life and you look at people that are successful, it seems like they have everything. You see movie stars that, man, they got all the money, they got houses, they got everything, and they commit suicide. Why is that? You see athletes, man, they have a lot of money and then they lose it. They have a lot of money and they're just not happy. They got big houses, they got fast cars. They had 2 or 3 wives, 4 or 5 wives. They're not happy. They don't know their kids. And you see people that are successful in business and whatever it is that they've done, but they have nothing in life that really matters. They just take one day and it just goes into the next. Well, I think life can only be of value when it's centered around Christ. If I have a centered life, that's God-centered, Christ-centered, now I have a chance that it doesn't matter what I have outside of me, but it's Everything, it has everything to do with what's inside of me. Now I'm beginning to live life from the inside out. And a person that's living life from the inside out, they don't need a whole lot. They don't need a whole lot of friends. They don't need a whole lot of people. They don't need a whole lot of stuff, because they understand that things come and go. People come and go. Stuff comes and goes. But the thing that I'm always focused on is, how am I doing? Am I being a person that's God-centered? Would God be proud? Would he love the way I'm living my life? Would he appreciate the way that I try to live my life and some of the bedrocks of the foundation that I have in my life? Am I a man of my word? Do I say things and then I do them? Do I affect the world that I live in a positive way? When I open my mouth, do I bless people or do I tear them down? When I say something, do I mean it with all of my heart? And if I see someone in need, will I help them? Will I help them? Having a centered life means that I do things with a purpose. I don't just live life by chance. I don't live life by how I feel. I live life by what I know is right. I live life by a set of principles. I live life by the Bible. And I strive to live that every day. I try to treat other people the way I want to be treated. When I'm talking, I try to uplift people, and I really try to speak into their lives and make a difference. I really hope that everyone that comes across my path in any day, whether it's my kids, whether it's somebody else's kid, whether it's an old friend, or whether it's someone that I'm just meeting for the first time, I hope that by meeting me that day, that I made a difference in their lives. And to me, that's having a centered life, something that's built on something inside of me. I am built from the inside out. When you look at me, you don't look at the things that I have. You look at the things that are in me. And to me, that's extremely important in life. So, do you live life courageously? And I believe that in today's time, even more so than any other time, because we can get bullied around with our phones. We're afraid to get involved. We're afraid to say the wrong thing. We're afraid to have our own minds. And we're afraid to bring a God point of view into something. Oh, get that out of here. We don't want to talk about that. No, we want to have our opinions. No, my opinion stinks. I have to make sure that what I'm bringing to the table is centered around something that's of real value, and that's the Word of God. So to me, that is what makes life worth living. The consistency, being able to know that in any given day, things may come and go, people come and go, but I'm always striving to be that same person, no matter what happens. If I can be that same person, even though all hell is breaking loose, if I can say, you know what, I don't know how it's going to work out. This doesn't look good. I don't know how we're going to make it out of this, but I know someone who does. I know that God knows. And because I know him, we got a chance that everything's going to be all right, because I know he controls tomorrow. So that's kind of my thought process on life. Now, when you begin to talk about leadership, you know, those three things that I just talked about, courage is huge. That I can't emphasize how important courage is. If you don't have courage, the rest of it doesn't even matter. You have to be courageous, being able to step up and say the right thing and then know when to say it. And being able to be consistent. It's so difficult to find people that are consistent because not enough of us know who we are. So we keep changing depending on which group we're in. If we're around this group, we act like this. If we're around another group, we act like that. And it's just real tough to live life like that. Because after a while, you begin to, you forget which group you're in. And they go, who is this guy? You're altogether different today. Oh, I should be acting another way. And then, of course, being centered. So those are the three things to me. If I can continue to focus on those and maintain those things in my life, I have a chance to be a good father. I have a chance to be a good husband. I have a chance to be a good friend. I have a chance to be a good brother. I have a chance to be a great American and make a difference. And to me, that's what life is all about. So with that, I'll take a step back, and I know you have some questions. Would like to be able to entertain some of those questions and see if I can help.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mike. If we were here in person, you would now be surrounded by a ton of applause, which we'll give you virtually. We do have a bunch of questions for you, which I'm going to be passing on to you in a second. Before we get to those, I will let you rest your voice just for a second so I can make a couple of announcements, which we would have done no matter what. The first announcement is our next event will be Thursday, November 5th. So coming up in just about a month, featuring Paul Grandgard. Paul is a local Twin Cities businessman who turned around Allen Edmonds and now just recently took over the reins at Faribault Woolen Mills. And he's going to talk about faith and turnaround. And the fundamental message he's going to bring is that what he learned in Sunday school has actually proven to be a very important way that he runs businesses and helps in his mind to make them successful. So we hope you'll join us for that. Again, Thursday, November 5th. If you would like updates to alert you to future Faith and Life events, you can sign up for our email alerts on the Faith and Life website, faith-and-life.org. You can also like us on our Facebook page, and I hope you will do that. As I've said now, for the last 17 years, now going into the 18th year, I want to say a strong word of thanks to all of our supporters. This ministry is a community service of St. Philip Deacon, but it is actually not part of the budget of this congregation. It is supported entirely by contributions from individuals and local organizations. So to all of you who make this possible and give us the chance to listen to wonderful speakers like Mike, I say thank you. I want to say a special thanks to our corporate sponsors, Crossroads Financial Group, Cressa, Ulrich Real Estate Group, Malley Design, Augio, Productivity Inc., Rapid Packaging, and Mastercraft Labels, as well as all of the countless individuals who, again, support us. So again, thank you for making these events possible and for making them free and open to the public. Okay, so now I think we are going to turn to some questions. I'm going to start actually, Mike, with one that was prompted by your comments. And again, thank you for them. And that is your that vision statement you drafted when I think you said you were 12 years old. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a 16-year-old. We have 4 children. Our youngest is 16. I can't imagine. I love Andrew very much. I can't imagine him being the man of the house at 12. But the question is actually, do you still have that piece of paper?
I don't.
Don't you? Okay. But you remember what was on it?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So here are a couple of, I've got, again, a number that I've received already, but I've gotten a couple in as you've been talking. First one comes from a person watching from Colorado, but born and raised in Chicago. She says she found, well, actually, I guess, I don't know if it's a man or a woman. This individual says they fondly remember the 85 Bears. And then the question is, can you compare and contrast Mike Ditka and Buddy Ryan as far as leaders and coaches? They say, I love the 30 on 30 for 30 that included Buddy Ryan and a lot of the Bears defensive players. Seems like the defense had a special relationship with Buddy. What was your relationship with Buddy Ryan like, and what did you learn from him? So I guess, again, that's maybe two questions, Buddy, and then comparing and contrasting leadership between him and Mike Ditka, excuse me.
Okay, I'll try and answer that. First of all, Coach Ditka and Buddy Ryan are very similar individuals. They were both very stubborn, both very hard-headed, but they both knew what they wanted. And I think that, something about leadership, sometimes you have to be stubborn, and you got to be focused, and you got to know what you want. Sometimes I think when you have a great idea and you know exactly where you want to go, and you have someone there that very, very much is the same person, a lot of times what happens is one of those individuals or objects becomes sandpaper to the other, and you just kind of wear a person down. And I think they wore each other down, but because they were so strong, it was good for them. And I think the worst thing that ever happened, and this is what pride can do. One of the greatest lessons that I learned about pride is it can rip the very thing from you that you love. And I think when I look at those guys, when I look at Mike Ditka, first of all, Mike Ditka was a tremendous visionary. And like I said, very stubborn, knew what he wanted. Man, it was going to be his way or the highway. And then guess what? You got Buddy Ryan, he's the same way. So where is that middle road when you're thinking, this is the right way, this is the way to do it, and the other person's saying the same thing? The thing that I've learned in life is that the person that loves the most is going to be the first one to give and say, you know what? Let's try it your way. Let's see how that works. And maybe you don't have to change everything, but just maybe admit that I may not be 100% right. And even if I am, I just want to make sure that I give you the opportunity to go first. And let's see if we can help each other. And I think when I look at Buddy Ryan and I look at Coach Ditka, they're the same guys. They really are. They just verbalize it very differently. Coach Dicka's got his way of verbalizing it, and it's loud. Buddy's got his way of verbalizing it, and it's manipulation. He's gonna say something and just say one thing, and the next thing you know, well, Buddy's not doing that. What do you mean he's not doing that? He's supposed to do it. Well, he knows we do that every Monday. Well, he's not doing it. And so it's stuff like that. But it was so much fun, and it was crazy. But I learned tremendous leadership lessons from that. And both those men were so amazing in their lives, and there's no telling what could have happened if they had found a way to stay together. Very, very, it's a tragic situation. I wish they could have stayed together. I think the Bears would have resulted in a lot more Super Bowls. Okay, good.
I mentioned this to you before, Mike, but you're in Texas. I'm here in Plymouth, Minnesota, at St. Philip the Deacon. Plymouth is the home to the Wayzata High School, who are Trojans, who are the state football champions from last year. They're going to actually start playing football again next week. I believe we actually have some of the football team watching tonight, and I got some questions from Coach Lambert Brown. I'll ask at least maybe one or two of them. And the first one, it strikes me as a particularly good one. What advice would you give regarding how to handle success and failure? And I guess particularly with a lens to younger players. And actually, if you want to, there is another question that came in that's related. If you could give one piece of advice to middle school aged boys, what would it be? So I guess those are sort of both directed at young men particularly.
Well, I think, first of all, when you're young and you're growing and it's very easy to get sidetracked. You have success, and so often when you have success early on, particularly at a young age, you feel that, wow, I made it. And you have a tendency to slack off. And it's very hard to get it back once you lose it. I think one of the most important things at any age, when you have some success, is to, first of all, be thankful for that success and realize that success does not come all the time. It's a very rare thing. Success has no friends. You have to make sure that you're always trying to attract her because she runs fast to another lover all the time. And I think it's so important as a young person to have a hunger when you reach a goal, immediately set another. Enjoy what you accomplish, but don't enjoy it all year. Enjoy it a couple of days, set a time. I'm going to enjoy this 2 days. I'm going to enjoy this for 3 days. I'm going to enjoy it a week. And after that, I got to get back on the grind because somebody else wants to feel this way next year. So I got to make sure if I want to feel it again, then I got to dig even deeper to get ready to go if I want to do this again. And so that's the thing, that whenever you have success, always realize that there are others that want to feel that success as well.
Beautiful. All right. Another question from an individual who asks, describe the presence of faith in an NFL locker room, or I guess maybe the absence of faith, or maybe faith means something different there.
Describe faith in an NFL locker room. You know, people have always asked me, Mike, man, it must be tough being a Christian in the NFL. And the answer is, it's tough being a Christian anywhere, particularly if you're a lukewarm Christian. And what I mean by that is some of the people that have the biggest problem being a Christian are those people that say they're a Christian, but then they do the same thing that everybody else is doing. And it's kind of like, no, wait a minute. What's the difference? I didn't know you're supposed to act like this and be a Christian. I'll give you a great example. I remember being at the Bears, and I was trying to get this guy to go to Bible study with me. And I said, come on. His name was Pat Dunsmore. And I was talking to him, and I said, Pat, come on, man. Come on to Bible study, man. We're having a great time. I may come next week. It was always next week. Well, we're playing a game, and there's a player out on the field that really, I thought it was a really cheap shot. And I got up and I went off on this guy. I went, you blankety blank, blank, blank. I can't wait to get my hands on you again. And before I knew it, I had said some really nasty things. I'm on the sideline, and this guy that I'm trying to get to come to Bible study, he said, man, I think I'm gonna go to Bible study next week. If you can go to Bible study and talk like that, that's cool. I felt about this big. I was like, oh my goodness, what have I done? And I realized that if either I'm going to be a Christian, knowing that I'm still going to make mistakes, either I'm going to be what I say I am or I'm not. And so that very day, I made a decision. I'm not going to talk like that anymore. And I apologized to that guy. And from that time on, I was always aware of what I was saying when I got upset. But that was a tremendous example. The guys that have the toughest times in the locker room are the hypocrites. If you live it, they leave you alone and they respect you for it.
All right. I gave you, again, when we were chatting before, Mike, I gave you a little bit of a heads up about this one, I guess, although I didn't read the whole thing. This is a slightly longer question that involves a bit of a story from a gentleman who is a West Point alum. So I'll read it. It says, Mike, I lined up against you in West Point, New York as an offensive tackle for the Army Black Knights on October 20th, 1979. What a long day for the Army team and me as Baylor won 55-0. The only excitement for the Army fans was when the Baylor mascot, a real live black bear, got loose on the sidelines. I don't know if you remember that. And this is the person again. I attempted to block you many times, but I unfortunately did not help my running backs and QB very much. However, I did help you get into the College Football Hall of Fame by making you look so good. You're welcome. And anyway, he goes on, as we prepared to play Baylor, we knew all about you based on your fame as an All-American and future NFL player. And we came up with a game plan specifically for you, which you summarily dismantled. I have to admit, we were all a little afraid of you based on your legendary status, and I'm sure most of your opponents were as well. You seem to be such a strong man, full of passion, conviction, and faith. As you look back on your life and your faith journey, were you ever afraid of another player, another team, or a life situation? Did you ever have doubts about your abilities? And how did you work through that fear and doubt? And what was the outcome?
I was never afraid of a player. But there were players, and I would say maybe 2 or 3 players that I thought twice about. And whenever I felt like the challenge was tremendous, my freshman year at Baylor, I remember playing against Earl Campbell. And I thought, wow, this is a tremendous challenge. This guy is huge. I mean, he is tough, nasty, and as a linebacker, I want to make sure that I don't go out there and get run over. I want to get some respect here. And I remember working my tail off, and the opportunity came in the game, and it was an answer to prayer. I met Earl Campbell in the hole, and I don't know what happened, but bam, I hit him, and they were on the 1-yard line. They didn't make it in, and I got up and I felt like Rodney Dangerfield. Hey, I'm still here. I'm still alive. And he got up and said, hey, that's not a bad hit there, young fella. And went back to the huddle. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. There was another guy, John Hanna, that played for Alabama. I remember playing for him when he was in the Super Bowl against New England. And this guy got down and growled every time in his stands, in a 4-point stance, and just growled like a 18-wheeler or something. I said, man, this guy, something's wrong with this guy. And but he was a tremendous opponent to go against. Sean Farrell was another guy that played at Tampa Bay. Not a lot of people know about him, but I really, really appreciated playing against Sean Farrell. And it was more of an opportunity to go play against a gentleman. He was, he didn't hold, he didn't cheat. And that's something, saying something about an offensive lineman. Very good guy and a hard-nosed guy. And I made sure that I obliged him every time we played.
All right. I love it. Again, we chatted a little about this before. If I'm not mistaken, you coached Kirk Cousins a little bit in youth football, and you also, among your coaching stints in the NFL, you were, I believe, an assistant coach for the Vikings for a while. So I'm assuming we have some Vikings fans. We have some disappointed Twins fans tonight as well. I don't know if you're a baseball fan, but we lost 2 in a row to Houston. So anyway, what would your advice be for our Vikings and your former mentee, Kirk Cousins?
Well, Kirk's going to be fine. The great thing about Kirk Cousins is, he loves the Lord. He knows who he is. He knows why he's playing the game. And he knows that you're going to have some ups and downs. And I think right now, Kirk is going to come out of it. He's going to do some soul searching, and he understands that right now God has the biggest opportunity to give him the glory. So the bigger the hole, the bigger the opportunity. And Kirk knows how to get out of a hole. He is truly a man of God. I'm sure his dad, Don Cousins, is giving him that advice as well. And I think Kirk's going to be fine. I think the Vikings will be fine.
All right. A very politic answer. Thank you. And honest and true. I'm going to bring you back to that 1985 season for a second. I found this somewhere. This is the NFC Championship game. So who would that have been against? I forgot to write that down. In 85, the NFC Championship game. Do you remember who that was against?
Rams.
Okay, the Rams. So this is Coach Mike Ditka. He says that the day before that game, he was talking to the offense while you, Mike Singletary, was in the next room giving the defense a motivational speech. While it started out quiet, within minutes, Samurai Mike, your nickname, was screaming at the top of his lungs, and the defensive players were throwing chairs and knocking over tables. So my question is, do you remember that, and do you remember what you said?
Well, yeah, I said a lot, but it was Eric Dickerson is one of those guys that tremendous player. And one of the guys had seen him the night before the game, and he was feeling good about the game, and whether it was true or not, he said, the Rams really felt like they were going to run all over this defense. And, that kind of got my attention, and we just kind of wanted to make sure that didn't happen. And that's kind of, we just tried to put it on the field the next day, and it worked out pretty well.
Excellent. We've had a few questions actually come through about sort of, and you mentioned your mom wasn't a big fan of letting you play football in high school, in part because it's it can be a dangerous sport. I mentioned I have my own son who's actually at the high school I mentioned before playing football, and his mother and I are a little worried about that too. So what would you say about maybe issues around safety and so forth? I know there's been a lot of conversations about that in terms of the game, particularly among young people. So what are your thoughts about that?
I think football is one of the greatest games in the world. I didn't let my sons play football until they were 12. And one of the reasons for that is because I wanted to give their bodies a chance to grow. And some kids get hurt at 8 and 9 and 10. It's kind of like, okay, if you want to play, let them play if they're mature enough. But I want to make sure that they're physically well put together and they're mentally focused and ready to play the game. But as far as the game is concerned, the next thing is who is the coach? When the kids are young, I think it's so important to have really good, fundamentally sound coaches. I don't really care about winning so much when they're younger. The most important thing is to make sure that you give them to that high school coach, give them to that college coach, give them to that professional coach, if they're going to go to the next level, being fundamentally and technically sound. I think I was very fortunate in high school and college to get coaches that were very disciplined about what it was that they were teaching me and gave me some sound fundamentals that I never strayed away from. I worked on those daily. Even when I worked on them before practice, techniques, I worked on them after practice, I worked on them in the summer, I worked on them at nighttime, before bedtime. And I think if a guy is really thinking about playing sports, particularly football, especially learning how to tackle and learning how to block, head placement and neck placement, all of those things are vitally important. And you can't go out there and just throw your body around and not make sure that your body has the proper technique. Without the technique, you're going to have a problem. I don't care how fast you are, how strong you are, you got to have solid, fundamental technique.
Good. We've had a couple questions about players you played with, and I'm not going to limit it to these, but among the questions that have come through have been, what was it like to play with Walter Payton? Also, Gail Sayers came up, who, of course, just passed away, I believe, in late September. So are there stories you think of or particular players you reflect back on during your years in the NFL who were special, important to you, either as players or as mentors? Or
Walter Payton was absolutely amazing to play with. Great teammate, funny. We didn't spend a lot of time together because he was a prankster, and there's no telling what he would do to you. One minute you're sitting with him, next minute there's a firecracker, it pops, and you wet your pants or something. What was that? And he's over there laughing. I don't think that's real funny. But he was that kind of guy, a lot of fun, class guy, good businessman. Really loved Walter. Dan Hampton and I did not get along when we played. We were head to head all the time. He was getting mad at me because the running back gains 3 yards. I'm getting mad at him because the quarterback throws the ball downfield for a 20-yard pass, and we're just going at it. But he was the first guy that I called, the first player that I called when I made the Hall of Fame, because I realized that he challenged me all the time, and I did not want to hear his voice asking me, where were you? What happened? So as I thought about it, it brought a smile to my face, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for Dan Hampton.
It'll be interesting. One of the questions I got, and I mentioned again to you before, that we have a wonderful staff here at St. Philip the Deacon. One of the members of our staff's grandfather was a gentleman named Ed Dutch Sterneman, who was the co-founder and co-owner, player and coach of the Bears, along with George Halas. They were partners from the founding of the team all the way back to when it was the Decatur Stanleys until the early 1930s, when he sold his interest to Halas. But she asks a thoughtful question, and given that you wrote your mission statement at the age of 12, I'll be interested to hear how you respond to it. But she says, looking back on your experiences, what would you tell younger Mike?
What would I tell younger Mike? I would tell a younger Mike to relax a little bit and breathe. It's going to be okay. I was always a serious kid. I was concerned about life. I was concerned about the people around me. I was concerned about our country. I was concerned about my family. Being concerned about my parents getting older. I was concerned about a lot of things, and it kept me on edge a lot because I didn't want to let people down. I wanted to be the best that I could possibly be. I wanted God to be proud of me. I wanted to be a good son. And so I wanted to be a good brother. So it's just kind of taking a step back and taking a breath and realize that all of these things are always going to be there. Take some time to relax and enjoy as a young kid, and don't get so tied up into all of the other things in life, because they're always going to be there. But take time to really be thankful and smile. And just thank God for life as it is.
That sounds like very good advice. I think we got maybe 2 or 3 more questions, Mike. And one of the narratives of 2020, besides COVID, obviously, has been issues around race and equality and so forth. At the risk of putting you on the spot, I mean, do you have a sense of, since we're talking about football particularly, how do you feel about the way the NFL is responding to that? Are there things that the league should or could be doing differently, or do you have ideas about that? Sorry?
How the NFL is responding to
issues of race in our culture and some of the inequality that's been lifted up this year particularly?
I really believe that one of the things that would really help in our lifetime, I hear, a lot of people say, hey, you know what? Everybody, nobody's a victim. We all have a chance to go to the next level. We all have a chance to be great. And to a certain extent, that's true. But there are some things in life, when one race of people, it's against the law to learn. It's against the law to go certain places. It's against the law to be out at night. It's against the law to congregate. It gets pretty crazy. And so sometimes it's so important in life to really take a look at those around you and be able to know that everybody's had a different walk in life. And it's so important to appreciate somebody else's point of view. You don't know where they came from. You don't know how they got to be to this point. You don't know what kind of parents they had. You don't know what kind of neighborhood they came from. And that's why it's so important to be able to not assume anything. Don't make judgments, but just be able to ask one question that's really important, and that's why. The first thing is why. Why is that happening? Why is that? The second question is, what can I do to help? Can I make a difference? Can I pray about it? How can I pray about it? And the next question is, am I doing that? A lot of people can sit around and talk about it. A lot of people can sit around and complain about it. What are you doing about it? Even just a simple prayer. The worst thing to do is sit back and complain and talk about who's doing this and who's not doing that, and what that's not helping. Complaining about it, that's not helping. Shed some light on it, pray about it, and let's move on.
Okay, I'm going to ask one more question, I think. So this will be a last question for you, and then I do, as I mentioned, have a little gift. I can't hand it to you. Unfortunately, we'll get it to you somehow. But the last question, I'll just read it in its entirety. Thanks for meeting with us tonight. You've been a blessing to many of us over the years through both how you played the game and how honoring you are to God and his people. Here's my question. What is your favorite attribute or way you see and appreciate Jesus these days? And this, by the way, is someone who says he grew up in Chicago, moved out in January of '85, and he says, I sense as a fan, I have some personal responsibility for the many dry years since 1985. One of the many reasons I'm now hiding out in the frozen tundra of Minnesota. But anyway, your favorite attribute or way you see and appreciate Jesus these days?
I think my favorite attribute about Christ is his ability in the Garden of Gethsemane. How difficult it must have been knowing what he had before him. And several days before then, a mother asked for 2 sons. Can I have one son sit on the right and one son sit on the left? And he says, you don't know what you're asking. Can you drink this cup? And we all think that we can drink the cup until the cup is presented. And for Jesus to humble himself and realize that he could have said, this is a bad deal, it's off. But he didn't. He said, Father, not my will, but thy will be done. The ability to take off anything that I have that's about me and put it down. Say, Lord, I don't know if I want to do this. I don't really know if they're worth it. But I'm going to do it for you. That to me is the ultimate. Doing something when somebody doesn't deserve it, but you do it anyways because God asked you to do it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, again, we have been looking forward to this evening for a long time, Mike. We are so grateful for your willingness to spend some time with us and share your thoughts about faith and leadership and football. I'll get this to you somehow, but what I've got for you here is what we give to all of our speakers, which is a granite plaque. I'll read it to you. It's got the Faith and Life logo on it and says, with thanks to Mike Singletary for bringing faith to life. And we thank you so much, Mike. I'd shake your hand or at least give you knuckles if I could. So grateful for you being here. To all of you who have joined us at home or wherever you are, thanks again for tuning into this. Join us again on November 5th, Thursday, November 5th, for our next event in the series. We're grateful for your presence tonight, and we'll see you soon.